learning session of Principles of Microeconomics BECC 132. Today's topic is income distribution and factor pricing. Factor pricing is very important theory. As you know that factors of productions are four: land, labor, capital, entrepreneur. All these four factors of production give contribution in the production of goods and services. Factor pricing in a competitive market is determined where demand is equals to supply. Generally, factor pricing is determined same as the determination of equilibrium price level. Equilibrium price is determined where demand curve and supply curve intersect each other. As you know that demand curve is always downward sloping curve because it shows inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded. And supply curve is always upward sloping curve which shows direct and positive relationship between price and quantity supplied. Just the same as equilibrium price, we can determine the factor price under this factor pricing theory or income distribution. Factor pricing is similar to commodity pricing. It means where demand is equals to supply, the price of commodity, simultaneously price of factor also you can determine. Input used in production is known as factor of production. Factors of production is called inputs. And when we use input, then we can get output. Without using input, we can't get output. And inputs are mainly four. Without these inputs, we can't produce any type of goods and services. These inputs are land. Land is very important input. Without land, we can't produce anything. Second is labor. Labor is also very important input or factor of production because without labor, goods can't be produced. And capital is also very important factor which gives main contribution in the production of goods and services. An entrepreneur who organize all these factors of production for the production of goods and services is also very important factor. So factors of productions are mainly four: land, labor, capital, and enterprises or entrepreneur. These are called primary inputs or primary factors. Secondary factors are also involved in the production of goods and services, for example, raw material, fuel, etc. In this topic, factor pricing or income distribution, which is very important, in this topic you will learn about how income is distributed among these factors of production and how factor price is determined. Here, factor pricing theory gives us the explanation of determination of factor pricing and how income is distributed among land, labor, capital, and entrepreneur. This also explained in this will be explained in this topic. For the simplicity, we explain market for labor. However, the theory is for all productive factor. Next is distribution of income. Distribution of income means the distribution of wealth that is produced among the different factors of production. How income is distributed among the factors of production? Because land give contribution in the production of goods and services, and after rendering the services of land, we will give reward to land in form of rent. Labor also contribute in the production of goods and services, and labor gets wages. Capital reward is interest, and entrepreneur reward is profit. All these factors of production gets reward in form of rent, interest, wages, and profit. The production of goods and services is a joint operation. It means we use all these factors of production for producing any commodity. All the different factors of productions, for example, land, labor, capital, entrepreneur, are combined together in a joint activity. Therefore, distribution of income is the systematic attempt to account for the sharing of the national income among the owners of factors of production, land, labor, and capital. The factors need to paid or rewarded for their services of producing wealth or goods and services. Thus, rent of land, wages of laborers, interest on capital, and profit to the entrepreneur. All these leads to effective and efficient distribution of income. So, distribution of income tells us how income or national income is distributed among these factors of production after rendering their services in the production of goods and services. So, as we discussed in this topic, here the distribution of income is distributed to land in form of rent. Income is distributed to labor in form of wages. Income is distributed to capital in form of interest. And income is also distributed to entrepreneur in form of profit. So rent, wages, interest, and profit is the reward of these factors of production. Next is input market. There are so many types of market exist in our economy, like factor market, where factors can be sold or purchased. Second market is goods market, where goods and services are sale and purchase. Third is money market, where money is sale or purchase. So there are different types of market, and the other market structures you have studied in previous sessions, like perfect competition market, monopoly market, monopolistic competition market, and oligopoly market. So all these markets, the main function of these markets are sale and purchase of anything which they are selling in the market or purchasing by the consumer from the market. Here we are discussing about input market. What is input market? First of all, you have to know about what is input. Inputs are the factors which we use for the production of output. So inputs are like land, labor, capital, and entrepreneur. Here we are taking two sector economy in which firms and household exist. As you know that firms are the main producing sector, and household is the owner of all the factors of production. We all are in household sector, count in household sector, and firms are those sectors which produces goods and services. Household is the owner of all factors of production. So household provide all the factors of production to the firm sector, and firm will produce goods and services with the help of all factors of production. Household will buy goods and services and spend money on goods and services. Firm will pay the reward of using all the factors of production in form of rent, interest, wages to the household sector. All these transactions are done in money form. So, money is used for selling or buying anything, because at present, money is a very important way for transaction. Without money, we can't sell or purchase anything. So, in input market, household will provide factors of the production to the firm sector, and firm produces goods and services with the help of these factors of production. After rendering the services of factors, firm will give reward to the factors in form of wages, interest, rent, and profit. And household will get these factors of production reward and spend money on goods and services which are produced by firm sector. So input market play very important role in this factor pricing theory. Next is demand for inputs. Why people demand for inputs? Same as demand for goods, input is also demanded by producer sector. We generally demand for goods. Demand for goods is related with consumer, but demand for inputs related with producer, because producer produces goods and services. So producer demand for inputs for the production of goods and services. Goods demand is always direct demand, because when we want to consume anything, we demand for that commodity for the satisfaction of our want. That type of demand is called direct demand. But the demand for input is always derived demand or indirect demand. Indirect demand is that demand which occurs due to the production of goods and services, or which occurs due to the other thing. So demand for factors is always called derived demand or indirect demand and joint demand also. This is because the demand for a factor of production is derived from the demand of output. Producer want to produce goods and services, that's why producer need inputs, and that's why producer demand for inputs. When the demand for any commodity or anything occur due to the production of any other commodity, that is called derived or indirect demand. If the demand of output is high, then the demand for input will also be high. And if demand for output is low, then demand for input will also be lower. So there is a direct and positive relationship between demand for output or demand for input. If we want to produce more output, we will demand more input. If we want to produce less output, then we will demand less input. On the other hand, commodities or goods demand is always direct demand or positive demand. Next is demand for input is always called joint demand. Goods demand may be independent or may be separately occur. But factors demand will always made by the producer in a joint way. Because if we want to produce any commodity, we need all these factors of production like land, labor, capital, and entrepreneur. Without any factor of production, we can't produce output. So, demand for input is always joint demand because all the factors give contribute in production of goods and services jointly, not independently. So, factors demand is always derived demand, and second is factors demand is always joint demand. But commodities demand is always direct demand, and commodity demand is always independent demand, not joint demand. So, this is the basic difference between demand for inputs and demand for goods or commodities. Demand for input mainly related with producer, and demand for goods related with consumer. Consumers demand is always direct demand, but the producer's demand for input is always indirect demand. When demand occurs due to the production of other thing, that will be called derived demand or indirect demand. When demand occur for the satisfaction of our want or need, that will be called direct demand. So this is very important thing. You must have to remember this thing, that what is the demand for input? Demand for input is always derived and joint demand. Next is supply of inputs. Why we are studying here demand and supply? Because we want to determine the price of factors of production. Same as if we determine the price of commodity, we need demand curve and supply curve. Same as if we want to determine the price of inputs or price of factors, then we must have to know about demand and supply of inputs. So, supply of inputs. What is the meaning of this supply of inputs? Quantity of factors of productions are mainly fixed in the economy because supply of factors are not perfectly elastic or not unlimited. Supply of inputs are always in a fixed quantity or in a limited quantity. Supply of man-made factors are variable, but the God-gifted factors are fixed. For example, land. Land is a God-gifted factor, which supply remains always constant or fixed. We can't increase or decrease the supply of land. Same as other factors like labor, capital, and entrepreneur, these supply is not always perfectly elastic, which can change according to our need or requirement. All the factors of production supply remains fixed or constant or less elastic. For example, supply of land. Land includes all the natural resources which are provided free by nature, and the supply of land remains always inelastic. You can't increase or decrease the supply of land. Second is supply of labor. What type of supply of labor exists in our economy? Supply of labor is always positively related with wage rate. Wage rate increases, then supply of labor will also increase. If wage rate decreases, supply of labor decreases. It means higher the wage rate, higher will be the supply of labor, and vice versa. And it depends upon the size of population or the proportion of population willing to work and number of hours. So, supply of labor is not always unlimited, it's also limited. It's affected by the size of population. If population size is large, then supply of labor will also be large. If population size is small, then supply of labor will also small. So supply of labor is directly related with population size and wage rate, because people do also willing to work at higher wage rate. If you will get higher wage rate, you will supply more for labor. And if you will get lower wage rate, you will not interested to work and your supply will fall. So supply of labor is always directly or positively related with wage rate. Higher the wage rate, higher will be the supply of labor. Lower the wage rate, lower will be the supply of labor. So supply of labor depends upon wage rate and the size of population. Third factor is capital, which is also very important for the production of goods and services. Supply of capital is a man-made factor, and the supply can change. Supply of capital can change or vary in long run, but not in short run. Capital includes new machines, buildings, plant and equipment, etc. Supply of capital is variable or it can change in long run, but in short period, supply of capital also remains constant or fixed. So all the factors of production supply is not perfectly elastic, which can change according to our willingness. All these factors are in inelastic nature or less elastic. Land is perfectly inelastic, which can't increase or decrease by the man, because land is provided by the nature at free of cost. So supply of land is inelastic. Supply of labor is also less elastic. And supply of capital is also inelastic in short period but elastic in long period. And in capital we include machines, building, plant and equipments, etc. Supply of land we include natural resources, soil or land area which are provided by the nature or God, and supply of labor depends upon wage rate and size of population. Now, where supply and demand both intersect each other, the factor price is determined on that point. Why we have studied about demand for input, supply of input, input market? Because the reason is because we want to determine the factor price. So if we want to determine the factor price, then we must have to know about demand for inputs, supply of inputs, and the nature of demand for inputs and the nature of supply of input curve, so that we can determine the factor price. The price that makes factors demand equivalent to factor supply is the point where the factor price is determined. Same as commodity demand, here factor demand curve is also downward sloping curve, which shows inverse relationship between price and factors demand. If factors are available at higher price, producer will demand less for factors of production. If factors are available at lower price, then producer will demand more for inputs or factors. So demand for factors is inversely related with the price of factors of production. That's why demand curve is always downward sloping curve. And the supply of factors of production is always positively or directly related with wage rate. As wage rate increases or price increases, supply of factors or inputs increases. When price of factors decreases or wage rate decreases, then supply of factors also decreases. When there is a positive relationship between factors demand, when there is factor supply and price, then supply curve will be upward sloping curve. And when there is a inverse relationship between factors demand and price, then curve will be downward sloping. So where both curve intersect each other, equilibrium price is determined. Graphically, it can be said that the equilibrium price is that point where the factor demand curve and factor supply curve intersect each other and both are where equal, there is determined the price of factors of production. So this is the determination of factor price with the help of demand for inputs curve and supply of inputs curve. Next is land market. We can individually determine the price of any factor of production. As we know that factors of production are four: land, labor, capital, and entrepreneur. Here we are determining the total factors of production price, but we can determine the factor price individually because factors like land market is also available, same as labor market is also available in our economy, and we can individually determine the factor price separately. For example, here we are discussing about land price, how rent is determined, then we will discuss about how wages is determined. So we can determine all the factors of production price jointly or separately. So land market is that market where land is sale or purchase by the owner of land. Unlike labor and capital, land has a perfectly inelastic supply curve. As we have discussed that land is provided by the nature at free of cost. Land supply is always inelastic or it remains always constant. Labor can increase, capital can also change, but land can't be changed. So land has a perfectly inelastic supply curve. So the curve of land supply curve is always vertical or parallel to the y-axis because land is fixed in supply. Therefore, price is demand determined. It means supply can't determine the price individually. Price in the determination of land price or rent, demand play very important role. Next is the firm compares the marginal revenue from using one more acre of land to the cost of an acre of land. Here marginal revenue, it means firm compare how much revenue we are taking from using one more unit of land area. If the marginal revenue product is more than the price, the firm will buy the land. In other words, we can say that if MRP, what is MRP? M is marginal, R is rate, P is product, R is revenue, and P is product. So marginal revenue product is the amount which we receive after selling the output. If marginal revenue product is greater than price or AR, then the firm will buy the land. And land has declining MRP, much like labor and capital. And the marginal revenue product of one more acre. So the firm uses land up to the point where MRP is equals to the price of land, because the equilibrium condition will be where MRP is equals to price, then the firm use land area. If MRP is greater than P, firm will buy the land, and land has declining MRP, much like labor and capital. So marginal revenue product determine the price of the land market. MRP play very important role. Marginal revenue product is that income which a producer receive after selling the output level. These two conditions, when MRP is greater than P, when MRP is less than P, these two conditions are showing disequilibrium position. But the equilibrium will always determined on that point where MRP is equals to price. Next is determination of rent. How rent is determined, we can show with the help of this diagram. First of all, we will draw a diagram OXY, right on x-axis, land demand or quantity of land, and on y-axis, take rent. The supply of land is always fixed or inelastic, but the demand for land is always downward sloping curve, same as other commodities or factors demand curve, same as with factors demand, it's always downward sloping curve, where factors demand or factor supply curve intersect each other, factor price is determined, same as where the demand for land and supply of land curve intersect each other, equilibrium rent is determined. Here the equilibrium point is E. At this point, where this blue line which represent the supply of land, this line is vertical because the supply of land is always inelastic or constant, because land is provided by nature free of cost. So supply of land remains always inelastic or vertical curve. Demand curve is downward sloping curve. It is represented by this red line, and where these two lines or two curves, demand and supply of land, intersect each other, equilibrium point is determined, and on this equilibrium point, rent is determined are zero. So we can determine the reward of land with the help of this demand and supply concept and with the help of this curve. Next is, according to Robert Lipsey, the theory of factor prices is just a special case of the theory of pricing. We first develop a theory of demand for factors, then a theory of the supply of factors, and finally combine them into a theory of determination of equilibrium price and quantities. So, with the clear from these words, which is said by Robert Lipsey, the factor prices also determine with the help of demand and supply curve. Just the same as the equilibrium price of a commodity, we can determine the equilibrium price of factors with the help of demand for inputs or factors and supply of factors. Where both curve intersect each other, factors price is determined. So, theory of factor prices is just a special case to the theory of pricing. And if we want to study about how factor price is determined, then we need to study a theory of demand for factors. Then we need to study the theory of supply of factors. And then, if we combine these two theories, then we can determine the equilibrium price and quantity of factors of production. Next is the basic concepts, which is also related with this topic. The basic concepts are like marginal product, or MPP means marginal physical product. Second concept is marginal value product, or VMP. It is known by VMP, value of marginal product. And third is marginal revenue product, MRP, which is known by MRP. In short, we can show that MPP is marginal physical product, VMP is value of marginal product, and MRP is marginal revenue product. Marginal product. What is this marginal product? Marginal product refer to the addition in the total product due to changing one more unit of factors. Same as in we have studied about this topic, marginal product, average product, total product in law of variable proportion or law of production. So marginal product is defined by the same. It is an extra or additional change which occurs due to increasing one more additional unit of factors of production. So MPP is calculated by taking this formula TPPN minus TPPN minus 1. This TPP represents the total physical product, the unit of total physical product, and next is the change in total physical product unit. So if TPPN minus 1, we can get MPP, marginal physical product. Second is marginal value product or value of marginal product. Marginal value product can be calculated with the help of MPP. If we multiply marginal physical product into price, price is equivalent to AR curve, because AR is always equals to price. If MPP is multiplied by AR curve or AR, then we can get VMP, or value of marginal product. Next is marginal revenue product, which is called MRP. MRP we can calculate with the help of MPP. If MPP is multiplied by MR, then we can get marginal revenue product. Marginal revenue product is the addition to the total revenue as additional worker is engaged. So these three concepts are very important in the study of marginal productivity theory, because the factor price can be determined with the help of marginal production or the contribution of factors in marginal production. That's why we need to study about what is marginal production, what is value of marginal production, and what is marginal revenue product. Because according to J.B. Clark, factor price or factor cost or factor price can be determined with the help of marginal productivity theory. And when we are talking about marginal productivity theory, then we must have to know about what is marginal product. So, marginal product is the addition in total product due to change in one more unit of factors. Value of marginal product is the price of factor which can be calculated by multiplying MPP into price, and marginal revenue product is addition to the total revenue as additional worker is engaged. If MPP is multiplied by AR, then we can get value of marginal product, and if MPP is multiplied by MR, then we can get marginal revenue product. Next is input demand curves. How we can draw input demand curves? In first diagram, here labor market is showing labor market. In this demand curve for labor is always downward sloping curve, which is inversely related with the wage rate, and the supply of labor curve is always upward sloping curve, where both curve intersect each other. Equilibrium wage rate is determined of the labor. And the second curve represented by the firm curve, it is showing MRP. MRP is marginal revenue product of labor. MRP 1 labor and MRP 2 of labor curve. Unit of labor curve, if we increase one more additional unit of labor, then MRP curve will change and this curve will shift to the right hand side. MRP curve is also downward sloping curve from left to right. Here input demand curve is showing that if the productivity of labor increases, then both marginal product and marginal revenue product will also increase. So due to increase in productivity of labor, marginal product and marginal revenue product will definitely increase. We can show this thing with the help of this input demand curves. Next is, here the condition is change. Here product demand increases, then product price will rise. And if product price will rise, then marginal revenue product will also rise. Here we are showing input demand curve, but here the condition is change. Diagram is same as demand curve downward sloping curve and supply curve upward sloping curve. It's a labor market demand and supply curve where both curve intersect each other. Equilibrium wage rate is determined, but in case of a firm, this curve will shift to the right hand side because here product demand is increasing, and when product demand increases, product price will also increase because we know that here the price and supply also directly related with each other. When product demand rise, then price will also rise, and if price rises, then MRP or marginal revenue product, the marginal revenue product represent that how much we get after selling our output, and by selling one more additional unit of product, marginal revenue product will also increase. So that's why MRP curve shifts to the right hand side. Next is profit maximization condition in input market. How profit can be maximized in input market? As we know that factors of productions are four: land, labor, capital, entrepreneur, and these three input markets like land market, capital market, labor market, we can use profit maximizing condition with the help of this equation or formula. For the land market, where the price of land is equals to MRP, marginal revenue product of A. A is a land area. Here the price of acre land is equals to MRP, marginal revenue product of land area. In capital market, the equilibrium or profit maximizing condition is where the PK, here the price of capital is equals to MRP K, it means marginal revenue product of capital market. Capital is always represented by K in economics. So, in capital market, equilibrium or profit maximizing condition is PK must be equals to MRPK. And in labor market, equilibrium condition is price of labor must be equals to MRPL, marginal revenue product of labor. So, in these three markets, land market, capital market, and labor market, the equilibrium or profit maximizing condition is PA is equals to MRPA. This exists in land market. PK is equals to MRPK. This equilibrium condition exists in capital market. And PL is equals to MRPL. This exists in labor market. Since the marginal revenue product is the marginal product multiplied by the value added by the input. So PA is equals to MPA. How we can get MRP? So marginal revenue product, how we can calculate? Its formula is if MPP is multiplied by MR, then we can calculate MRP. So in land market, MPA, marginal productivity of land multiplied by price of land. In capital market, marginal productivity of capital is multiplied by price of capital. And in labor market, marginal productivity of land multiplied by price of land. Then by rearranging the equation, Px is equals to MPA into PA. Px is equals to MPK into PK, and Px is equals to, this is in labor market, MPL into PL, which implies that MPA into PA, it means MPA into PA showing labor market profit maximizing condition, is equals to MPK into PK is showing capital market equilibrium profit maximizing condition in different market, different factors market like land market, capital market, labor market is represented by this formula. This equation can be rewritten as MPA divided by PA is equals to MPK divided by PK is equals to MPL divided by PL. So all these things are showing profit maximization condition in input market. It's very simple, not very difficult, because we are taking only price. How price of land area is equals to MRPA, and MRPA can be calculated by multiplying marginal productivity of land into price of land, marginal productivity of capital into price of capital, marginal productivity of labor into price of labor, and then we can rearrange this thing. Px is equals to MPA into PA, Px is equals to MPK into PK, and Px is equals to MPL into PL, which implies that MPA into PA is equals to MPK into PK is equals to MPL into PL, and we can rewrite this equation in form of MPA upon PA is equals to MPK upon PK is equals to MPL upon PL. So this is the profit maximizing condition. Next is profit maximizing condition in input market. We can conclude with this equation: the marginal product divided by the input price needs to be the same in all input markets for profit maximization. If the firm is using too much capital, the marginal product will be lower than it should be. Thus, the marginal productivity MP divided by P will be lower than the other input market. The firm should then use less capital, raising the marginal productivity of capital, and more of the other inputs, decreasing the marginal productivity of the other inputs until all the ratios are equal. It means if MPL greater than PL, if MPK is greater than PK, if MPA greater than PA, then this will not be called profit maximizing condition. Profit maximizing condition will exist when the ratio of all the factors of production, marginal productivity, and the price of the factors must be equals. So, if MPA upon price of A is equals to MPK upon price of capital is equals to MPL upon price of labor, where all these things are equal, then equilibrium or profit maximizing condition can be achieved. Otherwise, we can't achieve profit maximizing condition. If any disequilibrium or any imbalances occur in this case, then we must have to decrease the use of that factor and increase the other unit of factors. Next is the theory of factor pricing, which we have discussed in this topic. The theory of factor pricing is concerned with the evaluation of the services of the factors of production. The theory of factor prices is determined or discussed by many economists like J.B. Clark, Ricardo, and Marshall. J.B. Clark presented this marginal productivity theory. Ricardo gives rent theory. Rent is the reward for using land, and land is also the main producing factor or input. Marshall gave the theory of quasi rent, which is also related with man made things or man made goods. So, all these economists like J.B. Clark, Ricardo, and Marshall presented or discussed the theory of marginal productivity. Factor pricing theory tells us how factor price is determined, and it deals with the determination of the share price of four factors of production. For example, factors of productions are four like land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. Land takes reward in form of rent, labor takes reward in form of wages, in capital takes reward in form of interest, and entrepreneur take reward in form of profit. So pricing of factors of production is functional, not personal. The reward of factors of production is income of these factors of production and the cost of firms. Factors of production get reward. The reward which they get, that is called income, and the firm pay the reward to the factor of production. So according to the point of view of the firms, it will consider in cost. So firm wants to give less income to the factors of production, and all factors of production wants to gain more reward by giving contribution in the production of goods and services where both are satisfied or both are in equilibrium position, then equilibrium price or factor price is determined. So factor price is also determined or always determined with the help of demand for inputs and supply of inputs curve. And the theory of marginal productivity, which explain that in a competitive market, the price or reward of each factor of production tends to be equal to its marginal productivity. According to J.B. Clark, we should give reward to each and every factor of production according to their contribution in marginal productivity. But this is very impossible thing because all the factors give contribution in a joint way. We can't determine the contribution of individual factor in the production of goods and services. Because in demand for inputs, we discussed about that the demand for input is always indirect demand or derived demand, and it is also joint demand. So we can't determine the individual factors contribution because all factors like land, labor, capital, entrepreneur, all factors give contribution in production of goods or output. So the payment made to the factors contribution by the all the factors of production, how can we calculate the individual factors contribution? So the way which is presented by J.B. Clark is we should first of all calculate marginal productivity, and we get then we can get the contribution of each factor in marginal productivity, and we must have to pay the reward of each factors of production according to their contribution in marginal productivity. It means the price of labor must be equals to the price of the contribution of labor in marginal productivity, and the price of capital must be equals to the contribution of capital in marginal productivity, and the price of land must be equals to the contribution of marginal productivity in land. So where MPL is equals to PL, MPK is equals to PK, or MPA is equals to PA, then factor price can be determined. Next, assumptions of marginal productivity theory of distribution, which is presented by J.B. Clark. The assumptions of this theory is that perfect competition must be exist in product market, perfect competition must be exist in factor market, and factors of productions are substitutable, or here is a possibility of factor substitution. It means we can substitute one factor for another. Factors are divisible. We can divide all the factors of production in smaller units. And J.B. Clark assumed that full employment exists in the economy, which is very unrealistic assumption because full employment can't exist in each and every economy. Either it may be developed or underdeveloped. Full employment is a rare condition. It can't be exist. But J.B. Clark assumed these assumptions. And J.B. Clark assumed that technology remains constant, which can't remains constant, and the law of variable proportion is applicable under this marginal productivity theory. Law of variable proportion only exists in short period, not in long period. And the last assumption is maximum profit of this marginal productivity theory. It means that all firms wants to earn maximum profit. These are the assumptions of this theory. The remaining portion of this topic we will discuss in next session, which will be held in tomorrow. So today we have discussed about marginal productivity theory, demand for inputs, supply of inputs, factor price determination, and the assumptions of marginal productivity theory. And the remaining portion we will discuss in next session. Thank you.